Hey, what's up, guys? This is your wingman, Thomas Edwards, and I want to welcome you to another episode of the Professional Wingman Podcast. And first thing that I want to mention is the Professional Wingman Podcast is a long name. And I've been thinking about, really wanting to make this a regular thing, really committing myself to the podcast, to bringing on guests, to share insights that can transform your life. And I thought about why and what this whole pivot in the professional wingman has meant to me and what it's really for. And the idea is, there's a lot of people who struggle with feeling like they're not good enough, feeling that they're not worthy enough, feeling like they're a fraud. And at some point they're going to be found out, and all the things that they worked so hard for, they're going to lose in a moment. That may be true. That may not be true. Chances are when I work with my clients, it's not true. It's just a picture that's in their mind. So I was thinking about even the guests that we've had on to this show so far, this podcast so far, and the conversations that we've had, and they've all had somewhat of a similar theme, which is a lot of them, even when they are at their, we see them as successes today, but at some point along the journey, they too felt a little bit like a fraud. They too felt a little bit like an imposter, and they've been able to overcome their own version of imposter syndrome to become what I believe is a version of an icon. And to give you an idea of what I believe an icon is and what does it mean to be iconic, it's represented as a representative symbol worthy of respect or awe, inspired by the wisdom, dedication, skill, commitment, or talent of that person. So you heard me in a previous podcast talk about the idea of what an icon looks like and what we think it's supposed to look like. And I think anyone and everyone has the capacity to be an icon in their life. And the people that I brought on, and I myself, love the idea of being an icon here in this house, being an icon for my family, being an icon for you guys, being an icon for my community, for people out there, the nation, the world. It's limitless. We all have that ability to do that. And so without further ado, from this point forward, this podcast will be called the Imposter to Icon Podcast. Just Imposter to Icon. And I'm going to share personal stories like I always have. And I'm going to bring on guests who at one point in their lives felt like an imposter, and they were able to overcome it to such a degree where they've achieved a level of iconic success. And I'm going to share those stories with you. We're going to have those conversations, and we're going to talk about the journey, not just the before, not the after, but the actual journey of crossing that bridge to becoming iconic, because that's the part that not a lot of people talk about. That's the part that you guys need to hear so you can see it in yourself. And that's the part that you need to hear that's going to help you get to your own version of becoming an icon. So I want to welcome you to the Imposter to Icon podcast. And in this episode today, we're going to talk about how to become unlimited. I spent a week on the West Coast. I attended an amazing conference, got to meet with a lot of people, connect with just old friends, new friends. And there were some amazing speakers at this conference, and they shared some amazing anecdotes and some insights. And so I had some personal insights, and I wanted to reflect on just one of those insights and share with you what I hope will be a pretty cool solution to understanding the unlimited nature and access to energy and power and abundance and fulfillment that we all intuitively and naturally have within us. And how do you access that, especially if it's at a moment's notice? So I have 4 ideas that I want to kind of talk through, and hopefully this resonates, and some personal stories I want to share with you of why this is so important and how you can apply this to your life. And so the first point is, we talk about becoming unlimited. Well, we need to talk about what limits us, what prevents us from being unlimited. Well, there's 3 very simple things that can limit us. They are our thoughts, they are our feelings, and then they are our behaviors. And I learned about this particular cycle working with a therapist way back in 2018, 2019, and he taught me about cognitive behavioral therapy, otherwise known as CBT. And it was really profound for me at that time because I didn't really understand how to work with my brain and why my brain was trying to convince me that I was someone that I wasn't, but yet I was still following the feelings and the behaviors of the person that I knew that I wasn't. And he told me about the thoughts, feelings, behavior cycle. And it's all driven by your thoughts. Oftentimes we focus, especially in these days, we tend to be feelings first, thinking that that is what creates the behavior, but that's not true. It's our thoughts predicate our behaviors, right? What we create in the world, what we envision, what we picture and visualize and express into the world doesn't come from feeling, it comes from thought. And our feelings amplify that thought to the point of creation, which is where the behaviors come from. And behaviors can be considered actions and decisions, responses, or reactions as well. So behaviors is kind of like a global term for that. And we all have the susceptibility of experiencing what I call thought errors. These are things that will trigger or negative feelings that are weighty, feelings that are not productive for you in living that unlimited type of life. And we have to be really mindful of what these thoughts, I almost kind of think of it like, programs. These are programs that are now running automatically in your mind, and they become triggered by events that happen in your life. And when we don't become aware of what these thoughts, these programs are, we're essentially living our life purely in the blindness of our reaction to it. So we want to be really mindful of what are our thoughts? What are our key thoughts that govern our life? And if you look at where you are in your life, whether you're happy with it or not happy with it, your thoughts and the programs that run those thoughts are why you are where you are in your life today. So first step is to take a moment and really do some inventory around what are the main thoughts that govern my life. When I wake up and I live my life and I go to bed each day, what are the thoughts that are running the decisions that I make, the reactions that I have, the actions that I take to live the life that I live today? And you have to try to do this without judgment. It's so easy to get caught up and feel bad about where you are in your life or feel great about it, but just to have an objective point of view and to look at it purely pragmatically and just be able to see, hey, these are the thoughts that are running my life. Are they helping me or are they not? And here's something that I want you to consider here which is the second thought, the second part of this, is if you're not happy with your life and you are in a place where you are, let's say, really stressed. When you're stressed, you're not behaving likely in an ideal place. Your chances are you're reacting, you're not responding. There's not a lot of space that you're giving yourself to figure out what to do next. And that has to do with the fact that when you're stressed, you are in this position, and this is the thought, you believe in your mind, or you think that you are limited in your options. And so consider the stress that you experience in your life as a feeling of not having enough options. And I'll tell you, when I went through this cognitive behavioral therapeutic technique and I did even more therapy, what I realized in my personal life was when I feel stress and I feel like I'm limited in options, I run. I look to escape. And whatever I do, when I escape, it's irrelevant at the end of the day. I mean, for me, it was drugs and alcohol. But when I escaped, I was trying to create an option for myself because I felt like I didn't have any. And I didn't like the options that were available to me at the time. One of those options was actually facing the challenge that was in front of me. I didn't want to do that. I was not mature enough to do that. So I would just run and create my own options. But when I got there, what I really wanted to do was numb myself. I didn't want to feel the stress. I didn't want to feel the way that I did. I didn't want to deal with what I had to deal with. And so that was the option that I took. And I took that option repeatedly. And the problem that came up was the challenge never went away. And the feelings never went away. Because when I woke up the next day, whether it was hungover or not, those feelings and those challenges were still present, and I still didn't want to deal with them. So you can see how stress can start to create a loop of thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. And so just keep that in mind. The first thing you have to understand is when you are feeling stress, you have to check yourself and say, hey, like, what options do I have here? And try to not be prisoner of the moment. Try to not have an emotional attachment and really assess all the options, including the options that you don't really like. And chances are one of those options are probably the option to take. But be able to assess it from that point of view. And you'll realize that you always have more options than what your mind will trick you to believe. Second, the third thing that I wanted to bring up around the idea of becoming unlimited is it's about words. Let's call them words to success. When you start to use words that allow you to move forward, to be productive, to be proactive, to be helpful, to be useful, to be loving, to be compassionate, to be intimate, to be vulnerable, to be powerful, these words, what they do is they induce dopamine into your system. Dopamine is a good drug that you do want to have as it pertains to your level of ambition, your motivation, your overall sense of happiness and fulfillment. And it allows you to move forward. Just talking. I mean, even just saying those words for me, I felt a surge of energy through my body. And that has to be the dopamine. That has to be the dopamine. So think about language is so important. I find my clients so many times using poor language to describe their situations or what the things that they want to do. And I have to catch them and tell them, hey, dude, like, you can't talk like that because you're basically setting yourself up for disaster or setting yourself up to fail. You have to speak from a place of possibility. You have to speak from a place of opportunity. You have to speak from a place of success, even if you haven't experienced it yet. It's the only way that's going to get your body and your mind in sync to move towards that very thing that you want. If you speak words of failure, if you speak words of hardship, if you speak words of challenge and you stay in those places, then all you're going to experience is failure and challenge and obstacles. You can't do that. You have to speak from a place of being successful. You have to speak from a place of proactive. Notice I didn't say positivity because even that can be toxic these days. It's not about being positive. It's about being proactive and putting you in a better trajectory towards what you want and not be in limitation, but to be in possibility, to be in opportunity. That's the third thing that I wanted to share. The way that I like to, and I'll share, the way that I like to do this is a very simple principle. Don't listen to yourself. Talk to yourself. Now, what does that mean? Well, chances are if you're listening to yourself, you're listening to what's going on inside of here. And I don't know about you, but I know personally for me, a lot of my thoughts are repetitive. I think studies have shown maybe 80+% of our thoughts, our daily thoughts, are probably even more. Don't quote me on this, but I know at least 80% of our thoughts can tend to be negative. And I think even a bigger percentage of those thoughts are repetitive. And this is happening every day. So as much as I consider myself decent at reframing, but even my mind right now in its automated kind of program is trying to talk me out of not being good enough, not being worthy enough, feeling like I'm a total imposter and fraud, being here in front of you, in front of the screen, trying to tell you how you can live an unlimited life. My brain is trying to tell me to quit, to stop this video, this podcast, and tell you or tell me that I can't do this. So I have to stop listening to my mind. And instead, I have to talk. And yes, I mean, literally talk out loud like a crazy person. When I talk to myself out loud, it completely overrides whatever's going on in here. I can't hear that because I'm now paying attention to what I'm saying out loud to myself. And that is the truth. And to what I'm saying to myself is, I am good enough. In fact, I am great enough. Of course, I'm someone that can inspire others. Of course, I'm someone that needs to share this message so that one person can hear it and change their lives for the better, so they can go out and change other people's lives. Of course, I'm good looking. Of course, I'm attractive. Of course, I'm charismatic. Of course, I'm a hard worker. Of course, I'm successful. I need to say these things, but it also happens in the day to day. When I wake up in the morning, and it's these days 6 a.m., and I need to work out, as I'm walking to go to the living room to do my weight and body weight training, my mind is trying to talk me out of doing it. Can't you just not do a day? You don't need to work out today. Go back to bed. Chill out. Skip the workout. You don't need it, man. You're good enough. You're in shape enough. You're healthy enough. You don't need to do more. And I battle this every single day. And what I've learned is it's not always enough to ignore it. Most times I can. And that's a battle won. But there are some days that I can't do that. And it's very hard for me. So I have to talk to myself. Say, all right, Thomas, get up. All right, let's do some push-ups. Just so I can stop listening to this and start listening to what I'm saying to myself. And there's going to be situations in your life where you're going to try to listen to what you have to say in here, and all of it's bad. All of it's bad. All of it's trying to talk you out of doing those things, giving you negative. Remember last time when you tried to do that and how it failed and you're miserably? Man, what if we do it again and it's even worse? You shouldn't do that, man. Just chill out. Just sit back and just keep doing your thing. You're all right. You don't need to do that. Life is comfortable here. You don't need to take that risk. Why would you even put yourself in that position? All these things are going on in your head. And if you try to listen or try to listen for the voice, other voice that believes in you, chances are you're not going to hear it. So the way to override that is by talking out loud and say, hey, you know what, Thomas, I can do this. And in fact, I will do it right now. All right, let's go. Let's do it. And you just start talking, because immediately my mind, for whatever reason, turns off, because it's now directed to listening to what I have to say. So don't listen to yourself. Talk to yourself and use those winning words. Use those words for success to drive you into action, to do the things that your mind doesn't believe that you can, but you know intuitively that you can do it. And that's how you can become unlimited. And the last thing that I want to talk about is overcoming adversity. Joe Dispenza has you can see it in a lot of the videos on YouTube. He has this he talks about the importance of overcoming adversity, overcoming the inner mind, the inner devil's advocate that's trying to talk you out of doing things that you know that you want to do, that you're capable of doing. Well, there's a practice of overcoming that. And I love how he says it, you overcome until you become. You overcome, you overcome, you overcome, and then you just become. When I got sober, I spent, a good part of 2 years trying to overcome the fact that I was going to try not drinking anymore. And my mind was kind of wrapping around this idea of like, how am I going to have fun? Who's going to hang out with me as someone who doesn't drink? Am I going to enjoy life the way that I quote unquote enjoyed it back when I was drinking? Like, all these things are coming up, and it was a challenge for 2 years to wrap my head around this idea of not drinking. I personally did not have an issue with not drinking. That actually wasn't the thing. I didn't have the craving or the desire to drink. So I'm blessed in that regard. But in terms of the mental part, God, it was awful. It was awful for 2 years of just trying to figure out, like, what is my life without alcohol? Isn't that crazy to think? How that's the epitome of limitation. And then something switched from my second year in sobriety to my third year in sobriety. I had a conversation with a good friend. And what I realized was I was living my life as someone who was trying to not drink. Wow. Imagine you trying to live your life as someone who's trying to not do something. I mean, that phrase alone is just filled with limitation. And something switched in me and made me realize, how about I just live a life as someone who doesn't drink? Like, what does that look like? What is a life of someone who it just happens to be someone who doesn't drink? What does that look like? There's plenty of people who walk this earth who don't drink, and their lives are amazing. Like, what does that look like? And all of a sudden I went from limitation to possibility, and it created an opportunity for me. And I think that was the point where I overcame and then I became. And you have this ability to do this too, repeatedly, no matter what the obstacle is. And here's the truth. The adversity of what it is that you're going through is the fuel that you can use for your transformation. It's not something to avoid. And if you see the pattern here with all the things that I've talked about, challenge, obstacles, these are not meant to be avoided. These are not meant to turn away from. They're meant to be faced, because it is the fuel that's going to allow you to overcome and become the person on the other side of that adversity. And when you get to the other side of that adversity, your life has now become a little bit more unlimited than what it was when you first faced it. And the limitation that you perceived or were experiencing at the beginning has now been alleviated. And then the question then becomes, what else is possible? What other opportunities have now opened up as a result of overcoming this adversity and becoming a different version of myself? Fuel for transformation. That is what you use. Let that be the fuel that opens up the gateway to your unlimited life. So to recap, understand that to become unlimited starts with understanding your limitations, which are driven by your thoughts, your feelings, and your behaviors. Number two, understand that stress is a key indicator of feeling like you don't have a lot of options. So when you're experiencing stress, take some inventory and look and see what options are available to you, and even the ones that you may not want to do or consider. Number three is use words of success to give you that dopamine. And remember to don't listen to yourself. Talk to yourself and override whatever program is trying to tell you that you're not good enough, because that's just not true. Your soul knows this. You know this. You just have to tell yourself that. And last, focus on overcoming until you become. Adversity is your fuel for transformation, and use that to overcome, and to overcome until you become the person who lives that unlimited life. So I really hope you enjoyed this episode of the Imposter to Icon podcast. And with all episodes, whether it's me and a guest, I like to do what I call the iconic five. It's going to sound a little bit different for me because I'm going to be answering this on the spot, and they'll change with every episode, I'm sure. But it's just a quick five questions that I think could be really interesting just to get to know people, including myself. So I hope you enjoy. So let's see the first one here. What book am I reading right now? So I'm not reading a book, but I am listening to a book, and it is called The Wealth Money Cannot Buy, written by Robin Sharma. It was so good that I'm listening to it again. It's filled with so much information, so much insight around the different types of wealth that exist. And it's opened up my eyes to, man, I do live a rich life. And there's a lot more for me to be grateful and happy about. So I highly recommend grabbing that book or giving it a read. It's really, really fun. Who's a mentor you haven't met yet? I consider someone a mentor, anyone that you enjoy learning from. And so just for that context, and I learned from a lot of people. One person that I think is fun is someone that I'm learning from right now, which is Alex Hormozy. Crazy guy, crazy marketer, doing amazing things. Whether you like him or not like him, I just think he'd be a good person just to meet and have lunch with, or a coffee, and just, shoot the shit and have a good time and connect. He has a lot of amazing knowledge, and someone that I think just would be fun to get to know. What game are you playing right now? This is a good one. Right now, actually, I am playing Super Mario World. Yes, for Super Nintendo. It's actually a game that I only had for a few months, borrowing Super Nintendo from a friend, and I never got a chance to beat it. So now I have a chance, and I'm actually on the last level. So very excited. Hopefully, next time you hear from me, I have beaten the game, and we can celebrate that. What advice has been powerful recently, man? Um, coming from that conference, there was so much insight that I really appreciated. But and I shared obviously one of these insights. But another piece of advice I'll share with you is something that I got from a great speaker, and it's the idea that the past, your past, is not a definition; it's a lesson. In other words, you're not defined by your past. Your past is like history. And if you have taken a history class, then you know that there's things that you can learn when you read the history books of your life and the lessons that can help you today and in the future. So don't be defined by your past. Use them as lessons to create a better present and even better future. And what are you most excited about right now? Being back after a week-long time away from my family. I'm really excited just to spend some time with the family this weekend. Trying to find something fun to do with my daughter. If you have any fun ideas that I think she would be excited about, post them below so I can hear that and check it out. But we probably might do something like mini golf, maybe go to the Children's Museum, and I actually got date night with wifey tonight. So I'm also looking forward to that because we haven't had that in a couple of weeks. So I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for following along. And of course, if you love this content, please go to theprofessionalwingman.com/podcast to watch other episodes. And if you would like some serious coaching, helping you tap into that unique potential that you have to overcome your obstacles so you can become iconic and live an iconic life, go to theprofessionalwingman.com/apply. And I will personally reach out to you as a listener of this podcast, and we can have a great conversation that potentially could be life-changing. So I appreciate you so much. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you again soon.